Sarah. Hello and welcome to MindBloom.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Marina. Thank you.
Yeah, so my first question to you, what makes your mind bloom, Sarah?
All right, great question. So, what makes my mind bloom is very interesting conversations about boundaries and about self-care, really, and how the mind works. And also, what really makes my mind bloom is that feeling of being supported and being cared for. Like, for example, when I go to my favorite self-care appointments and that I have somebody's complete presence and attention on me, it's just like I could just be like, and open up and relax and receive, and that's like my favorite feeling in the world.
Now I'm curious, what are some of your self-care appointments? Is it a massage? Could it be a pedicure? I'm just curious.
Yeah, great question. So I actually really found out about the wonders of reflexology recently. And reflexology can work on the whole body systems through the feet.
Yeah.
And also it's so integrative and beautiful. Like you can pretty much just relax. And some people don't like having their feet touched, but I learned that I really like having my feet touched.
Just go with it. See, I mentioned the pedicure. I wasn't so far from it. I guess it's my way of getting a little bit of reflexology in. All right, so Sarah, tell us a little bit about your work.
Okay, so I work with women in the area of boundaries and increasing their relationship to their own self-worth. So sometimes as younger people, we could have tolerated situations or experiences or opportunities that were less than desirable for us. So what I aim to do with my work with supporting women is to help them always realize that they can choose what's best for themselves and hold themselves and the people around them to a higher standard to be met in that place where they're receiving respect, support, and love unconditionally.
Unconditionally, yeah. And how, if at all, your background and your past experience inform the way you work with your clients?
Yes, so I've always been a one-on-one person and been able to provide support with people, individualized support and self-advocacy. So my history was working in the disability support services for over 20 years. And then that translated to working with people in the cuddling industry where I was working with them one-on-one, and they came to receive unconditional love and support and care and nurturing from me. Basically because I wanted to give them back the feelings that I feel good when I see my support people. I was like, I can feel so good after a massage. Why can't I give that feeling to somebody else in a different way? Because I didn't want to be like her, getting into the muscles. And I was like, no, that's too much hard work for me. I'll just relax and embrace them. So through the experience as a cuddler, actually, I really wanted to go deeper with my clients, and I wanted to go deeper into their minds and into their ways that they view themselves and help them to be able to really be able to ask for what they wanted, because that's one place that really holds us back in life, and it can really make a huge difference when we're comfortable with being able to ask for what we want.
Yeah, so true. So what would you say are the first steps towards establishing boundaries and healthy limits? That's so important. What do you need to do to get that started?
Yes. So what I would say is have a really clear vision in yourself, in your body, about what that looks like for you. So usually I suggest to the viewers and my clients to take a piece of paper and just fold it in half. And on one side, write what I'm available for. And on the other side, write what I'm not available for. So that way, and like, obviously there's as many opportunities as there are blades of grass in a field, right? So just get started. Like, what do I want from my relationships? What do I want from work? What do I want? Like, how do I want people to treat me? Because the way that we treat ourselves is the way we treat other people, how to treat us.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll say it again. The way that we treat ourselves is how we teach other people how to treat us.
Wow. Yeah. Please go on.
Yeah. So just knowing like, this is what I'm available for. And, you know, having those loving limits with yourself and with other people. Like, yes, I can go to brunch for 2 hours maybe, but if it's 4 hours and if everyone's just mimosas all around, it's like, I really have to do something different with my Saturday, you know? So finding out where your limits are, finding out where you need to take back your energy so that you can be more supported and grounded in what you actually are in alignment with. It's about alignment.
Oh, yes. So you mentioned the folding of the paper in two and writing on one side, what am I available for? What are my limits, I guess? And what am I not available for? Not drinking mimosas for 4 hours on a Saturday. Would you also recommend journaling? Are there any other tips and actionable items you would have for our listeners?
Yes, of course. So journaling is always a great option. You can really go deep with your situation when you're doing journaling. For example, some of the things that stem from not being able to set boundaries is that feeling of, well, if I set too hard of a boundary, will people respect it? Or if I set a boundary and it's like, is it okay to give a little bit and be flexible, or does it need to be rigid? And, you know, figuring out your own style of communicating and setting boundaries. So some people actually don't set them up front, and then they actually have problems with their relationships and experiences down the track. And then they're in the damage control kind of situation.
Exactly.
So I always suggest to any person that's listening, right, to establish these up front, establish the ground rules, establish what is expected so that both parties can have, you know, equal opportunity to review like what exchange is going to take place, and then they can consent to if that works for them or not.
That's beautiful. You mentioned consent, and that is so true. We forget that we don't only need to give consent to the big things in life, but also to the very little ones. Give consent to having you call me at 10 p.m. when I already shut down my phone, or even giving consent to us. Would you agree with, and I'll be guilty of this, of going on social media after a certain time in the evening? Would the boundaries, would we would it be healthy for us to set our own boundaries to ourselves?
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would definitely recommend that. And that's what we call internal boundaries. Okay. So they're the boundaries we set with ourselves. It's like, I'm going to get up every morning and practice my morning routine, or I'm going to avoid eating carbs because I know my body feels better if I don't. And those like loving promises that you give to yourself so that you can have a healthier life. And that was one thing I was going to share. And another thing I was actually thinking of before on your question before was that basically another way that I would suggest to anybody that's wanting to practice this, I mean, it doesn't work so well for internal boundaries, but for external ones, you can have a role play with your friends if you don't feel comfortable with sharing what your boundaries are, because sometimes people do have a history of not being able to express and not feeling like they're heard. So having a loving, supportive with a therapist or with a partner, with a friend, having those conversations where you can actually practice asking, for example, your boss for the raise before you actually have to ask your boss for the raise.
I see.
Yeah, so it's one thing to know internally what I'm standing for and what I want in my life, and it's another thing to express it. So I help clients with both, and with internal boundaries and with external boundaries, and with personal and with professional, although I do have a preference towards working with the professional one.